Lovely job. I'm here to introduce Mark of the family Horn. And I was thinking it is really wonderful that he has this ability to trumpet everything about equity, because I think this is one of the bases of where, from what I gather, having looked at his videos, listened to his talks, that he speaks of a great deal. So, just a few little pointers. There's an exit out there. There's also a place where you can stand outside for the smokers. There's also an exit here. Is there one there?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one there.
Keep that clear.
Right, yes. And anyone who's parked their car who's not resident here, down in the car park, could they move them, please, at lunchtime? Take them to the car park over by Stephen Keith. That would be wonderful. So without any more ado, may I introduce to you Mark.
Thank you. Okay, they do have a microphone, but I'm not used to talking with a microphone, so if you can't hear me out of that, just shout. Okay, this is how my journey started. Okay, the Fool, those of you that are familiar with the tarot. Okay, and it's all about that journey. What is the purpose of life? Okay, I've been in the rat race. I've done exactly the same thing that everybody else does. I've gone through my social conditioning, through my parents, through my family, through my local community, through the education and everything. In the rat race, 2.4 kids, Ford Escort, whatever, semi-detached house, all of that. Life fell apart, got divorced, and then moved back to Kuwait. My background, was born in South Africa. I'm actually German. My father is non-benevolent, i.e. force achieves nothing other than imposing one person's will on another, and that does not create change. So Kate retired from work. She was teaching 5 years before me, saying, what the hell are we doing? And my son finished university, came out after the first year almost being kicked out because he only attended 10 hours of the lectures in the first year. Managed to recover that, came out with a distinction, a master's with distinction, and walked straight to the job. All of a sudden, we're saving a bit of money. My daughter, 2 years later, followed also with a distinction with her master's, walked straight into a job, and all of a sudden we were saving money. A friend of mine died who was a month older than me, earning loads of money, running Kuwait oil companies and computer systems. And shortly after that, my brother's brother-in-law died, who was about 4 years older than me. That there created the motivation, which Kate already saw 5 years before me. What the hell are we doing? Let's go and live. So we sailed out of Kuwait 10 years ago, almost to the day. It must have been, it was February 2013. We've got a 40-foot sailing boat, and we thought, right, boom, let's head out. I was working, and my boss agreed that I work part-time. So I actually got a real Kuwaiti lifestyle here, because I work 1 to 2 weeks every 4 to 6 weeks. We went to Oman for 6 months, so I was flying back regularly. And my secretary, for 5 years before, okay, I literally did cycle analysis with my feet up on the table, my office table, drinking coffee, just researching cycles and stock markets. And everything follows natural law. So I used to come into my office and say, Mark, what do you think? You know the answer, right? You know what to do. But I just need you to, confirm, sort of thing. So the first few months, she was on the phone to me every second, third day, just getting my, okay, yes, you're doing the right thing, you're doing the right thing. And nowadays, she phones me and says, Mark, I think it's time that you came to Kuwait. Right. So what's that all about? this whole thing is about just self-empowerment. I had to teach her to take responsibility for herself, for the decisions she's making. And we moved then, in Kuwait you don't get a pension, and so we bought a flat in Liverpool. Went fine, we got our guaranteed rental income, which basically paid 50% of our investment back within 3 years. But that averages about 250 quid a week isn't enough. You need about 3 to get a reasonable standard of living. So we went and bought the next one up in Leeds. That one was an off-plan investment. And once the building was sort of done, they were bust. But they didn't transfer legal title. Legal title is possession is 9/10 of the law. Okay. So what is underneath there is acquisition. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm able to use them now.
I should be able to, yeah.
I'm really struggling. Yeah, I can come forward, but I'm just thinking it might be.
No, that's
if
fine.
you're
I'll try, but I tend to walk along.
It might be better also for the video.
Okay. I suppose we can switch it
Sorry
on.
to interrupt you.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. I'm going to stand quite close to this. So, basically, it became clear that there's something not right here. And guess what the rich do? Okay? They are the foundation, they own nothing and have the benefit of everything. So, unbeknownst to me, I was the fool. And I got involved with the anti-fracking stuff. And with that, one night somebody woke me up at midnight saying, "Can you drive a car at 6 in the morning?" And it's like, why? That wasn't the question we asked you. Can you drive a car at 6 in the morning? So, yeah, sure, I drove the car at 6 in the morning. And what they did in North Yorkshire was very different in the anti-fracking that they did anywhere else. Everywhere else, there was a central organisation, a top-down. Now, are you familiar with the Occupy movement? It started grassroots, got infiltrated and taken over by George Soros people, and took over, and that got pushed to the side. The same thing happened with the same people in the anti-fracking community. Again, it started off grassroots movement, got infiltrated and taken over. In Kirkby Misperton, I don't know if many people are familiar with Ian Crane and what he was doing, but he was very strongly involved in the anti-fracking, and in North Yorkshire, it was a decentralised movement. Nobody knew what anybody else was doing. And very quickly, it stopped the fracking in North Yorkshire. So this whole idea of a top-down thing, which is the control system, is absolute nonsense, and that's the foundation of what I'm trying to do with peacekeepers. Each of us is independent, a sovereign, a king, a queen, and this is what we need to, this is what I'm trying to get across to people. It's not me, because nothing that I'm going to tell you today you don't know yourself. I'm just using different words. So when we were in North Yorkshire, what happened was, you know, through the Facebook, it was clear to me everybody's been charged under the Trade Unions Act. So I did my research on the Trade Unions Act, because guess what? I used to be in contract management. And in contracting, if you want to get the job, you need to be the lowest bidder. So how do you make money? You make money by finding the mistakes in the contract. And then you slap in variation orders. And that's the only way you can make money as a contract. So, went through the Trade Unions Act, had my plan, and went there, and the police come and say, you've got to move under the Trade Unions Act, section blah, 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 blah. So it's like I turned over and I'll be going through this and saying, because the Trade Unions Act introductory text, which most people don't bother to read, says, be it enacted by the most gracious monarch, the Lord Spiritual, Temporal, advined with the advice of the Lord Spiritual and Temporal, in this Parliament assembled by authority of the same. So I said, where do you see my name and your name on here? What makes you think you can tell me what to do? I don't see my name on here. It's got nothing to do with me. And because it's bound with the advice and consent, okay, they have by their free will consent created, guess what? A common law contract. So an Act of Parliament is nothing more than a common law contract. It's contract law, simple. So, so I turned over the next page, the introductory text. You need to be a member of a trade union. Okay? So I asked the guy nicely, which trade union do you believe I'm a member of? And he was like, oh. Left me alone. Carried on with everybody else, saying, in accordance with the Trade Unions Act, you need to move along. Okay? It did not stop me from then using physical force to detain me. Okay? However, it stopped them nagging me and hassling me. So, next day, that evening they had a problem and they had a big meeting at Gold Command, because next day they came along and said, you've got to move along because of obstruction of the Highways Act. So I said to the policeman, he was here, I said, and this is a small lane, single lane, grass verge on both sides. Who am I obstructing? Can you see anybody I'm obstructing over there? No, me neither. Can you see anybody obstructing? I'm obstructing over there? No. So I said, but those two police vans, okay, who are parked on the half on the verge and on the road, they're definitely obstructing the traffic. I suggest you go and speak to those people for obstruction of the traffic, which duly they did, and they actually moved their vans. So, did it stop me again? No. Did it stop them using that on the others? No. Okay. And then the third day, it was for my health and safety. Thank you very much. Okay. If I miss something, please do not hesitate to shout. But I don't, other than that, I don't require any of your input. So what's going on there was, I'd been through, I don't know if you know the Canadian Solution Empowerment or whatever, the notices. So what's happening there is natural law in action. So the way natural law works is, I follow my conscience, which dictates right from wrong. I do what I want, so long as I don't knowingly cause another harm. So natural law works. Those who do something, do it. Go ahead. But when somebody challenges that belief, then that creates a cease and desist in equity, an equitable estoppel. Hence, the police stopped hassling me, because it was that blatantly obvious that they were talking crap, that even they understood it was crap. And so but they continued with everybody else. So I stood on my rights and I stopped them. Others didn't, and hence, if you stand on your rights, you have them, and you harm no one. If you don't stand on your rights, you have none. Okay? So who's the problem, them or us? Us. Until they're with the knowledge that what they're doing is wrong. Okay? So what should have happened is, because Mark stood on his rights and said, hey guys, you know, the police should have gone to everybody, can you know, what trade union are you a member of, etc. And before they did that, before they do anything beyond that, they should have applied the best available knowledge through the fiction of law, the constabulary, because an agent in there has been notified that the action is wrong. They need to verify first that people are members of the Trade Unions Act, and then they can continue. They understood that problem, which is why the next day, following the meeting in Gold Command, they came up with obstruction of the highway. And then the day after with health and safety. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to get through to people. Those who stand on their rights harm no one, those who don't have none. So anyway, we went back to Liverpool, and I got writing my notices, which Solutions Empowerment now, I had verified what they said. I looked at their website and thought, yeah, this makes sense to me. Let me go and test it. And my God, it works. And then the next step is to put it in writing. So this is how I went to put it in, to serve the notice. So Kate came with me, we went up to the post office and got one of these certified sign for delivery things and got dressed like this, the fool. Okay, that's the start of the journey. I served second and third notice and I made 3 demands. The first demand was that they allowed slow walking. The second demand was that the companies that are doing fracking must have all known risks insured, so that when it goes wrong, the public don't end up paying the bill. And the third one was that they needed 90% of the local communities, and defined that as within 5 miles of the frack approval, consent, 75% of the county and 50% nationally. Guess what happened? The day after they'd received the third notice, the next day they allowed slow walking. 2 weeks later, they made an announcement that no fracking can be done because they had to do a financial security analysis, whatever, coming to the Secretary of State. So basically they had to verify that they're covering known risks. And then the third thing, obviously, would have just totally shut the whole lot down. They didn't do that, but 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Okay? So that's the basis of absolutely everything that I'm doing. So it starts off the journey of the fool, and where is it going? The journey of the fool relates back to why did I go part-time? Kate instinctively knew, okay, women have this thing called intuition and a connection with source. Men don't. We rational things. Okay? So the fool then is, what is the purpose of life? And to me it's clear the purpose of life is to discover your own truth and live your truth. So with this whole thing then, it just continued to evolve. I went and said, it's wrong that this company can run away with 50 grand. And just coincidentally, all the directors had new multi-million-pound villas in Spain and God knows where else. So I went after 13 directors, because the way they set up these things is everything is like, you know, company A owns company B and's got shares in here, here, here. So I unraveled the web, which came back to 13 people, including a solicitor. And I did I had a 45 quid book on equity and trust. I thought this makes sense. I went down and did a couple of weekend courses with Richard Anson down in London and put my claim together, put it into court. And within sort of 2 days, half of those directors had resigned and restructured. So, I got some impact here. I knew that they were working in different groups and they had conflicting interests between themselves. And really, the basis of my first submission was successful because guess what? they all start blaming one another. So they actually gave me the absolute foundation of what I was doing in regards of the facts. So the facts were clear. And then they put in applications to strike out my claim. Now, my first submission, looking back on it, what a dog's mess, okay? However, I went to court to defend myself, and they were threatening me with already at that point £12,000 of costs. And I thought, shit, bullshit, I'm right, you're wrong. So, mid-2018, in court, to defend my submission, and that they didn't strike it out. Quite rightly, my submission was crap. However, in the court, what came out of my mouth was substance. And so the judge said to me, listen, guys, Mark, you've got an opportunity to resubmit your claim. So what did that teach me? Okay, if I write 2 dots, capital letters, small letters, however I write, the format, the form, okay, is irrelevant. It's the substance, the standing. Can you stand on your belief? It's not a question of whether you can translate that into nice language. Okay, so how we write our names, all of this stuff, legal fiction, 2 letters here, of the family of Horn, we've just spoken about that. Honestly, it makes absolutely no difference. So there's my proof that it makes no difference. But there's loads of other places, and we'll be talking about this, because we need standing, and you stand in your knowledge and your truth. So that's what standing is. It's not, do I stand under you? Understand means, do you understand? Okay? So then I resubmitted, and also in their applications to strike out my claim, they had all of this case law from God knows where. And I thought, damn, it's all in my little book. And so I researched where they got this from. Sorry. And guess what? They've got books of law, which is why when you look at the pictures of lawyers, they've got these shelves of books. Because what they do is every year update the case law and issue a new edition or an addendum to the sort of standard one. So, okay, let me order some of these. £2,500, what? Okay, and altogether the books that they were using was about 15 grand. Now, do you think a solicitor running their own office can afford this type of money to be updated with the law? No. This is why they're all top down. I managed to find some second-hand ones, 10, 20 years old, which cost me under 400 quid. Went through that, and my God, absolutely amazing what's in these books, the law. So I presented my new skeleton argument, and essentially my skeleton argument was simple. In accordance with Lord Cohen's 18-something hundred, so this is all old stuff, nothing new under the sun, a company can't act for it has no being. It's a fiction, it's an idea. Parliament is no different. And it acts through its agents, its directors. And where the directors have authority, the company is liable, and where they don't have authority, the individual is liable. So the same principle applies absolutely everywhere. Because when we look at the substance of what he said, was a fiction of law cannot act because it has no being, therefore it's impossible. It acts through the human beings who are responsible and authorized by the company to act. And if they act within the authority of the company is liable. And if they act outside of it, they're under personal liability. And that means, because it's the people that act, the company by impossibility can't do anything unlawful, because we're all equal under the law and nobody's above the law. That's how simple it is. And I'll show you that. That's exactly the arrangement. And how the British government, UK government, whatever you want to call it, is set up in their own legislation. Okay? They can't tell you to do anything. Why? I cannot impose my will on another without their consent. Therefore, they can't do the same to me. So, it's really simple. But the question is, how do you enforce this? And that's the problem. The whole system is only working because it has the monopoly on the use of violence. There is no legitimacy in what they do, and there's no lawfulness in what they do. So this is the whole basis. Once you get that understanding, and you know it, you all know it. You know, the whole concept of parliamentary sovereignty is the only claim that they are bringing forward now to say that they can impose their will on you. And that is utter nonsense. So what I want to do is just show you, maybe it's better now if I take this thing off and try and hold it.
Do an Elvis.
Okay. I think I'm connected to the internet. Okay. So the hot topic is local council tax administration. Oops. Okay. Have you all heard of legislation.gov.uk? Okay, basically that's where statute law is found. And here, okay, something called introductory text. Have any of you ever read introductory texts? Yeah? So, let's go. So basically the introduction is, what's this all about? And on every contract, it'll tell you the authority of the parties. So the introductory text says, the Secretary of State does blah-de-blah-de-blah, and the key authority, the source of authority, what gives this document power, is the Local Government Finance Act 1992. So without the Local Government Finance Act 1992, this is toilet paper. Okay? So next we go to Local Government Finance Act 92. Okay. And it says, be it enacted, so we're in the introductory text of that one to see what gives it power. Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, by and with the advice and consent equals common law contract, where we bind ourselves to the respective duties, rights and obligations of that document, by our free will. The Lords spiritual and temporal and commons in this Parliament assembled and by authority of the same. Your name? Can you see it? My name? Prime Minister's name? Okay, so are you a party to this contract?
Would the Prime Minister be in Commons though?
Yeah, no, the Prime Minister's in Commons, yeah.
But even though it says the Commons on there, it doesn't mean the Prime Minister, you mean?
Yeah, no, it does.
Okay.
Okay? Because, and the reason it does, I'll show you in the next step, okay? Because it doesn't say Boris Johnson, does it? Or Rishi Sunak, or whatever. Okay? So, what makes any policeman think they can tell you what to do? It hasn't got their name on there either. Okay? Yeah?
It says on there, right at the top, first line, for certain local authorities, not for all.
Yeah.
Is that, why does it say for certain ones? Is that because it's... they can choose?
Basically, you need to go into the structure because like the Duchy of Lancashire is sort of like a little bit different, City of London is a little bit different.
But that's not a local authority, is it?
Yeah.
It is?
Well, they fall under different legislation.
Right.
Okay, and you'll see how this whole thing comes together, hopefully within the next 5 minutes. So, who's the Lord Spiritual? People know the monarch, yeah? You know, I think it's Charlie now, isn't it?
If he hasn't been coronated,
Yeah?
is he still technically the monarch?
Yeah. You'll see it's actually totally irrelevant.
Okay.
So,
Awesome.
who's the Lord Spiritual?
Church.
Yes.
The shadow?
Church.
House of Lords.
Church. House of Lords is different, and we'll see what it is. The Lord Spiritual is the church.
Church of England.
Church of England, correct. Who's the Lord's temporal?
House of Lords.
Okay, so a bit of confusion here, right? And it'll be clarified. Basically, again, let's look at reality. Everything starts with thought. Okay, inspiration. That thought then is expressed, the idea is expressed, and then that there is manifested. So what we're doing is manifesting the new reality. So the spiritual, the idea, is something that's different from the existing. So some dudes came up with this idea, let's put together this book and say, let's do a bit of fraud on the people and say that if you don't listen to us and do what we tell you and give us your money, you're going to hell. So all of a sudden, because people have fear of the future, now there's been put in something to explain the future, the unknown, the mystique. And with that, people thought, Jesus Christ, I don't want to go to hell. I want to go to heaven. So here, take some of my money. So the spiritual, the idea, the thought creates wealth or accumulates wealth. Until the people say, hey, hang on, why have you got all that gold? Why have you got all the big houses? Why have I got nothing? Then the people will, the odd person, natural law, okay, the odd person will start to rebel and say, this is not fair and just. It's not right, it's wrong. So they will stop this, and then the spiritual idea needs to defend itself to keep the wealth that they've accumulated and to continue the thought going through. Yeah?
Because fear accumulates the money, doesn't it? It's fear.
No. It's the control, the threats of.
Yeah.
Okay? So originally the threat is, do as I say, you go to heaven. Don't do as I say, go to hell. So
Yeah, scared.
on the ignorance, on the dark side,